That's so funny. All right, good evening. Let's go ahead and call tonight's meeting to order. Today is September 14th at 7 o'clock for the Economic Development Commission. Tony, you want to do roll call?
Yes, Jerry Cabasco, not here. Kirsten Erickson.
Here.
Robert Perry.
Here.
Tracy Smadilla. Nanette Gutenkoff. Joel Laporte. Adam Lewinsky.
Here.
And Michelle Hughes. Ms. Hughes?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great, thank you. We do have a quorum. Thank you for coming out, and thank you for joining us, Commissioner Hughes.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of the August 10th, 2020 minutes. Any discussion?
I approve.
Okay, we have a first.
Terry's first.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
All right, I can see from the lovely spaced new seating that we have here in our socially distanced area, we don't have any public. Were there any public comments sent in or anything? All right, so we can move past public comments. All right, Tony, number 5, September broker blast.
Thank you, Commissioner Erickson, and again, thank you all for being here tonight, and Commissioner Hughes for joining us remotely for our first in-person meeting that we've had, I think, in about 6 months or so. So certainly appreciate that, catching up on economic development that's going on. So in terms of the email blast, last month, I had put this also as an agenda item, if you recall. My preface to this item is that during the pandemic, a lot of the ways we've traditionally marketed and reached out to businesses, whether it be trade shows or regional meetings or broker meetings or open houses or in-person visits or whatever the case may be, have been curtailed. So as you'll see in the next item agenda where I talk about all the developments going on, the interest has remained strong. But in terms of us doing some type of outward marketing, trying to reach some people who might not be thinking of doing a project or who haven't called us first, started doing some of these broker blasts. I added, right before I did this one, painstakingly combed through many records and contacts, probably from the last 4 or 5 months, with about 60 some odd brokers. So I added quite a few, and there's 330 recipients now. Another preface I want to say to this is, for a lot of the months during the pandemic, with the remote meetings, we talked about all the email blasts that we've been doing for the existing businesses in town to keep them up to speed with all the programs and regulations. This one is tailored specifically to people who are brokers, like Commissioner Perry, like people who represent tenants, try to find spaces for people looking to expand. And a lot of these people are contacts that I've made over the years that have either done business in Bartlett or who we know through one of our biggest trade organizations, ICSC. So that's what this is. This is, we call it a broker blast. I kind of like doing it now and try to change it up. Like, we have so many properties, even though we have so much development going on throughout the community, we have so many different properties available, whether it's land, whether it's an office space, whatever the case may be. And if Joey goes back a little bit, you can see that the first one that I highlighted, that's gigantic building that you see at Stearns and Munger. There's 2 of them. They're both 207,000 square feet. We have 2 tenants. Well, we have 1 tenant in one of the buildings that took about a third. We're working with another tenant taking the next third of that one building. So essentially, there's going to be about 80,000 square feet left, 84,000 in one of the buildings, and the entire 207 still remains available. I do want to tell you, after this broker blast, I do get, I printed out today some of the statistics on it. We do it through MailChimp, by the way. And out of the 330 recipients, we had 88 of them opened, 37 of them bounced. We had a number of clicks on them. 293 were successfully delivered. And I can tell you, I sent it out, I want to say maybe last Thursday. And then by the time I got to work Friday morning, I had pretty much a full inbox of people asking questions. So that's what we're trying to do. Not going to say, hey, this is going to turn into a new industrial building or a new store or a new office, but it's people who are looking at the sites. I had a good solid inquiry on a 10-acre site and had some other inquiries with some of the vacancies in the buildings. So this is something most likely I'll be showing you every month. Oh, and then one more thing. Some of the brokers that get it have listings in town. So I did get a request from one of the medical office buildings. If you know that Suburban Orthopedics building, at Chicken 59, they've asked me to highlight their building at the next blast. So you'll see that one up there next month. So that's what that is. That's about all about the email blast. Also promoted there's a sublease space right next to the Amita building. Amita did not take the whole thing. That's not the most beautiful picture I've ever seen, but it's the one that they use. And where you see that kind of light-colored arch over the door, there's some vacant space over there. We have shown it to 3 different entities, some of them that were very promising, and as of now, we're 0 for 3 on them, so there's nobody coming there right now. I spoke with the broker. He thanked me for blasting it out. And then the last one was just kind of a recap. I'll go over this in the development update, that there's the nice rendering of the new 7-Eleven convenience store with fuel pumps on 555 West Lake Street. So also, we figured we might as well tout that we've got a lot of stuff going on. This isn't a book, so you highlight 2 or 3 or 4 properties and you move on. You try to, it's part of our branding. We haven't talked about branding for a while, but it keeps some people who weren't really thinking about Bartlett, maybe it jogs their memory a little bit, or somebody who just so happens to just be looking for a place for like a new wing franchise or whatever, and they go, okay, let's check this out, whatever the case may be. So again, this is something we just used to do maybe quarterly, and now we're kind of taking it up on a more frequent basis, and I'm going to keep adding any broker that I make contact with is going to get added to this email blast list. And I'd be happy to comment or answer any questions or take any suggestions. And just leave it at that. One more thing, if there's any, I've offered to do a few buildings where they said, let's hold off a month. I'm working with somebody, or hold off for a little bit. So I know there's a lot of other properties to promote, but if there's one, you think we should really focus on, we're open to suggestions.
Any comments? Tony, when you were saying how many people had opened it, what is kind of like, how mail and all of that for an email blast like this, what's considered a good success rate for opened?
This one was a little bit, I know Joey wants to jump on this one. This one had about a 30% rate, which was actually a little lower.
Okay.
We like to see what, like 36,
Yeah.
38, 40?
From what MailChimp tells us, people in similar lines of work and similar types of things, they're looking for like a 35, 36%. But I mean, this one was a little below average, I think, where most of ours are hitting 40 or 50 across the board. So we're usually pretty above, and it could be with the holiday weekend and everything.
Right.
So
Yeah. So, 30 is kind of the bottom. You would want at least 1 out of 3 people taking a look. From having been here so long and so many contacts and so many trade organizations, I'm sure a lot of you are in the same boat. I probably get at least 100 emails a day, sometimes 200.
Right.
And so you can't spend your whole day just clicking through emails. But, so, I try to have something snappy like September, maybe you want to have some, a good heading so it kind of captures somebody's attention. So, yeah, 30% was actually a little low on this one. I'd like to make it higher than that, at least 33, like at least a third.
Sure. Well, and I think a lot of that probably could be with the week that it hit, because a lot of people were out on vacation, and they come back and how many days of email, so
Right.
kind of get lost in the shuffle of a holiday, so.
It does a little bit. Joey's actually talks with me about that a little bit, like what time of day, what
Oh, yeah.
time of week. Do people want to look at it first thing Monday? Do people want to look at it at 10 a.m. on a Thursday?
Right.
When they're in the better mood on a Friday? We're gonna play with it a little bit, and
Yeah.
see what kind of responses we get.
Good.
But I'm going to quote Scott on something, if we can convert one of these to one
Oh, yeah,
solid prospect or project, it'll be, however many we send, it'll be worth it.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely a cost-efficient way of reaching out to that many people, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, anything further? All right, let's move on to development update.
Okay, this is going to be a lot, but I'm going to go kind of fast. Okay, but it's exciting. I'll tell you why it's exciting is because we have, we don't have a big office sector per se in Bartlett, but we've got a lot of residential, a growing commercial base, and a lot of industrial. And so we're getting residential, commercial, and industrial development going on right now. We're getting them from the north end of the town, up on Lake and 59, all the way to the south end of town at Army Trail and Schick and that area. So in terms of residential, we've been working, I know I've been saying this for a long time. We're still working with 2 apartment projects. They're both on village-owned properties. Some would say that makes it more challenging. Some would say it makes it less challenging. But, there hasn't been an upscale modern apartment development in Bartlett for decades. There have been, of course, Town Center was built, and there have been a multitude of townhomes built. However, in terms of apartment buildings with modern amenities, there are none. So we have 2 that we're working on. One of them is right down the block there at what we always call Site E. The reason we call it Site E is because from 2015 to 2016, myself and some other staff spent over a year coming up with a downtown transit-oriented development plan. It identified a bunch of development sites in the downtown, and the village-owned one at Railroad and Berteau was labeled as Site E, Opportunity Site E. 1.87 acres. Scott and I know that, are coming to know that piece of land up and down and backwards and forwards. And so we've been working with a developer who's proposing an apartment building and purchase of the land from the village for quite some time. So that's one apartment project. Another village-owned property is at the southwest corner of Route 59 and Lake Street. That's 11 acres that the village owns. We're under contract, or we're going under contract with somebody for just under 7 acres on that site. Again, somebody we've been working with for a long time in terms of all kinds of negotiations as the landowner, all kinds of fee calculations and discussions about height and density and all that kind of stuff. So these are 2 projects that we certainly hope come down the pipeline soon. Soon is kind of subjective, might be a month, might be 3-4 months, but still 2 that we actively work on in some way, shape, or form basically every week, okay? In terms of single-family homes, this is something that's scheduled for the village board meeting tomorrow night, and there's some other things later on that are coming up to the board. Pulte has plans in for a small subdivision called Eastfield Estates, or Eastfield, over near the high school there at Petersdorf and Army Trail Road. That would be a 27-lot subdivision. So that's up, I believe, for final vote tomorrow night. So we'll get another small subdivision on the south side of town. Fuel stations you saw, I'm not going to go over each one, but people had asked for many, many years. It seems like forever what was going to happen with that old station over on Lake Street that was dilapidated and fall into ruin and not used for many years, foreclosed on and whatnot. And so the village has approved a 7-Eleven at the site of that former Marathon station with 5 pump islands. When you meet with the fuel station people, they call it a convenience store with fuel pumps. They make most of their money off of the convenience store. Of course, there's way more sales volume on the fuel, of course, but in terms of what the operators profit from, it's only a few cents per gallon typically. And so they're focused on building very attractive and beautiful new prototypes of their convenience stores. Maybe some of you have seen some of the new 7-Elevens around some other communities. You wouldn't really recognize them as 7-Elevens. And also up for vote tomorrow night, for final vote, is the village's first diesel fuel station. It's True North Energy. That's that rendering up on top. You can see they do business as Shell. So the gas islands will look like a Shell station. The corporation and the convenience store is operated by True North. That's a bigger convenience store. That's 5,000 square feet. And there will be 16 pumps on a 3-acre site. And that one differs from the other fuel stations is that they would qualify as one of these diesel fuel stops. You may have heard about it. They have to meet certain criteria in terms of size of the property and whatnot, but that's up for vote tomorrow night. There's a third fuel station we're just kind of in the earlier stages with for an expansion. So not only is that very convenient for you folks, for Bartlett residents, for folks who work in the town, for people coming and going from the business park and everything, but really when these are on major thoroughfares like Route 59, when they're on Route 25, it generates a real lot of revenues for the village from people who are passing through town. So these are very good uses. More development, we could talk probably the whole meeting about what's going on at Streets of Bartlett. Streets of Bartlett, you can see the picture of Wow CBD that just opened. Right next door to it, the same village resident entrepreneur, David Orozco, is opening a hot dog and Italian beef place called Hoot Dogs. There's a small micro event facility, they call it, like a little banquet facility coming soon. Scott's on the phone constantly with prospective businesses and Mr. Raffidia. I am as well with other businesses. We meet with them probably about once a week. Seems like sometimes every day. And we've got a lot of businesses possibly coming to that center. He told us, and he told the EDC, excuse me, and he told the board when he came here in 2018 that it was his intention to take that 50% vacant center and bring it to full occupancy by the end of 2021. And I, for one, believe him 100% that he's going to do it. He's well on his way. We could talk about Armanetti coming, One Taco Dos Tequilas, delicious. He's got some plans for the dollar store that just vacated, hot dog place, CBD store, and ice cream, thank you. So that's going to be pretty, maybe a year from now we'll sit here and say it's 100%. That would be nice. There's other spaces besides the downtown. There's a nice picture of some of the earthwork that was going on last Thursday. I snapped a nice photo over at the Culver's site. So Culver's coming soon. We're meeting with a lot of prospects and sending information on Bartlett Tap to a number of interested parties. We'd like to get that one up and running sooner rather than later. And I think we could make a report probably every month in the EDC just called the food report. Because, you know, these are a lot of restaurants and bars we're working with. We've got a very popular chicken wing franchise that we're working with. We've got possibly another Dunkin' Donuts coming to town. The new shopping center, the Galleria. I've sent quite a few food users to take a look at that. If you recall, Army Trail Road, Beef Shacks over there. So we have quite a bit of food-related businesses coming to town already, and more coming. I think probably almost every month we'll be talking about food users coming to town. Let's see, is there anything else? Yeah, I made that point. That was my last bullet point. Because retail has changed so much in general. This is more of a macro level comment, but because so many people buy so much on Amazon and eBay and whatever e-commerce websites that most people, my own family gets an Amazon delivery almost every day for retail goods. But when it comes to food, we're not at least yet looking for Amazon burgers or Amazon tacos or Amazon Chinese food. I hope it doesn't come to that. But people like their food local. A lot of mom and pop operators in Bartlett, and as well as some chains that we're talking about, like possibly Wingstop and Dunkin' Donuts coming. So that's the commercial. And shifting to our real bread and butter, we're the multi-million dollars and the 400,000 square foot buildings out in our industrial parks. Continues driving the economy. I'll say that the whole time I'm here. This picture right here is the McKesson building as it looked last Thursday. Looks almost done to me. Some of us will be meeting some of the people with McKesson pretty soon to kind of go over where they're at with their project. Also, a distribution business called Tomart is scheduled up for the village board tomorrow night. When we were doing these remote meetings and I was talking from home, talking about how there were some prospects that we were working on remotely and how great the planning department was with conveying plans and receiving plans and making comments remotely. One of those calls I got almost right before the pandemic started was this company looking for kind of a small build-to-suit location. So there's still some what I would call infill locations in the DuPage County portion. The real big buildings, there's no more room in DuPage County for those. So Tomart is up tomorrow night for final vote on a 5-point-acre site. The Blue Heron Business Park is in Kane County. Great Lakes Landscaping is building a headquarters. There's a private therapeutic day school called Parkland Prep that's building their own facility out there. Of course, we never thought that a private therapeutic school would come out to a business park that's zoned for heavy industry, but they've been in an industrial building in Streamwood for a number of years and wanted to build a building more suitable to their clientele. So they had a relationship with Dean Kelly, who was able to facilitate that deal. So we're getting, I want to backtrack a little bit and say, usually when we have these longer daylight months, like June or July, the last few years, I've booked a tour. I've booked a shuttle bus and show everybody around. We missed doing that this year, but I very much hope that we can do it, not really starting at 7 p.m., but when it's dark out, but do a tour maybe in the spring where we can see these, you can see these things with your eyes instead of me just talking about it. Cathay Industries built a 100,000 square foot facility in the Kane County area. They're one of the world's largest manufacturers of iron oxide. I mention this because this is another aspect of economic development that's becoming very widely publicized and embraced. They call it FDI, foreign direct investment. And this is another company. We've probably worked with 6 or 8 foreign-based companies in the last year and a half, and this is one of them. They're based out of China. In the works, always like to tell you guys about stuff in the works. We're working with a developer and a big investor, and of course the business park owner at Brewster Creek Business Park to bring in what would become the largest building in the village, and on a speculative basis. Where you see this McKesson building is in Cook County. There's 2 other similarly sized lots in the Cook County portion, and this would go on one of those lots. We've been working with them, I'm going to say I've been working with them for a very long time, well over a year, maybe a year and a half. So this is just something that you'll see probably within a month or 2. It'll come before the commissions and submittals and stuff like that. They're going to have to apply for what they call a Class 6B, which is a property tax incentive from Cook County. And again, without going on and on too long about it, the property taxes in Cook County on industrial are substantially higher than the collar counties, and which is what justifies that program. So, and that was my last point. I said we'll, schedule a tour of the business parks, hopefully in the spring. I put this in because I didn't want to just say everything's peachy keen and coming up roses. We have some challenges ahead. Scott and I together have probably reached out to several grocers over the past few months, the pandemic months. Some of them are national chains. I mean, it's no secret. We've been hounding Aldi for a very long time. But also we've been reaching out to some grocers who only have one store and who we thought, well, they have one store. It's 10 or 15 miles away. Maybe they should have 2 stores. Or somebody who has 2 and should have a 3rd. So very small operators, not the Marianos and Aldi of the world, but the ones with people's names on them, the former Main Steel facility seems to become a challenge as we anticipate its completion along Devon. We've had a few false leads for tenants of that building, but because of the timing, it hasn't really moved forward for a while. That's going to be a challenge, but we hope to fill that in 2021. Infill sites I talked about in Brewster Creek Business Park. I won't be talking about any more 200, 300, 400,000 square foot buildings in DuPage County portion, but we'll be talking about 50,000, 40,000, 70,000, maybe 100 if somebody combines 2 contiguous lots. But we're going to consider, for industrial purposes, those are considered infill sites. And I wanted to remind you of BETA. We haven't had a BETA grant for a while. But again, Scott and I have had meetings with prospects over the last month or 2 where they want to do some pretty exciting type of projects in town. And we tell them about BETA grants and how we want to kind of get that up and rolling again. We had like 5 or 6 in a row about a year ago, and then it just kind of stopped. But we want to start bringing those. And then I should mention we've done some creative sales tax agreements, both Moore Brewing and Culver's entered into sales tax sharing agreements with the village that we use those as incentives to help attract them to the community. So, like I said, we have a lot going on, but we have a lot of challenges as well. And since I just talked for almost a half hour about development in the town, if there's comments, I don't just bring it up to report, but also suggestions. I know we've reached out to some of these big national names, similar to Culver's, somebody who's big and splashy like that. We haven't had a lot of good feedback from them lately. In many cases, not even responses. But again, I always throw that out there. If there's some business that you're visiting in another community that you think would be a good fit, if there's something or someone you think we could reach out to. Some of the commissioners here have sent me prospects in the last few months that we've reached out to, including a new hair business a men's hair business coming to Streets of Bartlett that I didn't mention. And so, yeah, we want to try to work, towards filling the gaps that we have in the market, and any suggestions or comments from you are welcome.
I would like to comment that I think you guys just do a phenomenal job. You don't wait for the people to come to you.
Right.
It seems like you are always working, being creative, trying to make the village the best it can be. And as the chamber, we do get calls from people. I think I just referred to somebody last week. They were little, but, and I'm proud to promote the village because I think that you guys do a great job.
Thank you, and I can't tell you how highly we would value the chamber relationship, really, when we talk about business retention and all the educational opportunities that I've seen you doing, and all the networking events. So likewise, but thank you for that comment, and we do try to be proactive whenever possible.
Yeah, I think that that's a lot of good information, and yeah, exactly what Nan said. I think it is a very good partnership. It's good to see things are able to move forward when there's a partnership like that. And I would encourage everybody to think of, if there's a business that you visit and you think that it would be a good lead for Tony to explore, definitely shoot him an email and make sure that we're exploring that, because he may not visit that type of business and be unaware of it. So I think we all definitely should be looking for some referrals over to Tony.
Yeah, yes, thanks for mentioning that. Like the first item I talked about is a broker blast. And that went to a bunch of people with CB Richard Ellis and Newmark and Grubb and all like kind of the big brokers. But for every one of them who brings in a business, there's one or two businesses that come in via other means. From a village resident who wants to open one, or has a friend who wants to open one, or somebody's financial advisor tells them about a space, or somebody's hairstylist tells them about a space. And I can tell you now, going on, actually, now that I think about it, this month, 20 years doing economic development, the good prospects come in from any which way.
Wow.
So, that's something I want you folks to think about on your own, is maybe some prospect that you know of, or somebody that you think has two locations but might want a third, that kind of thing. A lot of the businesses we contact are franchises, and they just tell us right away, well, we need a franchisee. I mean, Culver's told us that for years and years and years and years. And then finally, there's an interested franchisee in the area, so boom, we strike on it as fast as we can. They were looking at 3 towns. I'm proud to say, Bartlett's not the only town they were looking at.
Sure.
And so we were highly responsive and made them a good offer. They did ask for a sales tax rebate as part of the package to attract them to town, and we were able to find them a great site and go from there as an example. So, but yeah, anytime you're come into contact with somebody like that, don't be shy to tell them you're on the EDC and you might have like a good site to tell them about.
Anything further on this topic for Tony?
Well, Tony, I'd just like to say that keeping us informed about what's going on in Bartlett really helps us to get the word out, because a lot of people know that we're on the Economic Development Committee, and they do ask questions about, hey, what's going on over here? What's going on over here? So it's good to be able to answer their questions directly by having these meetings that you're putting on, instead of having to tell whoever asks a question about what's going on that, well, I'll call Tony and find out. And then everybody forgets about it. So to have this information available for questions that are asked from the citizens in Bartlett is very helpful. And it makes not only us look like we're part of the village because of the work that you're doing and informing us on what's going on. So I just want to bring that out to let you know that it's very helpful.
Well, go ahead.
I just wanted to add some new business myself. since this is the only meeting of the year I haven't been asked about more brewing, I wanted to bring up the fact that they did purchase the property, and they did announce it via their social media that they're coming. So we'll feel a little more comfortable once we see a shovel, but nonetheless, we're excited, and that continues to progress in a great direction.
Have you ever thought about Trader Joe's? Just kidding. Just kidding.
You're not even the first person to ask that today. We have,
they're
you know what?
thinking about it.
There's no use keeping that anonymous. That's one that, on a whim, I reached out to again recently and didn't even
Yeah.
merit a reply
Yeah.
yet. Didn't even reply. So I'm going to take that to mean that they're still not interested at the time.
Like it to try.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. But one of the things I will throw out there, when we talk about the apartment projects that we're working on so much, and I know it's not the same as talking about a grocery store, but the grocery stores usually cite a lack of density. And so what we're looking to do in instances where we can, they're less impressed, even though these, dare I say, these Pulte homes are going to be very beautiful and large lots, but they're looking more for people, younger people, double income, no kids, empty nesters, people with some disposable income, and maybe like 300 or 400 people living on a 2 or 3 acre site. So that's why I'm excited about these apartment projects and why we keep talking about them, because it will increase density in at least a little bit in the downtown and as much on the north end of town as they build units. That'll be a bigger project if it goes forward. So that'll make the village hopefully attractive enough that it'll more than just spark some interest from a few people who kick the tires, but somebody who's like thinking, really, I need to be in this town.
These apartment buildings you're talking about that the village owns, the property off of Lake Street, do you have an idea of, are they going to be high-end apartment buildings or medium?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to put an asterisk. They'd be probably the most high-end in the village. You know, when we look at different lease rates, you know, a lot of times we compare it to here's what it is in this town or here's what it is in that town. It would be about the highest in Bartlett. They go by square foot in the apartment business, just like they do in commercial and industrial real estate. And there's a lot of reasons why it's taken a long time, but part of it is the housing studies and the lenders and the underwriters. They're looking to get $2 per square foot. Thus, a 1,200 square foot, you know, unit would rent for $2,400 per month. So that would be considered, you know, pretty much high end around here. If you take the surrounding communities as well, it would be probably the most high end within about 3 or 4 communities. So it's a big project. And they spent a lot of time. Scott can attest to this. I had meetings and conversations about closet sizes, where balconies should be located. There would be a business center, since there's a lot of people who would work out of their home. They would have like a little business center where you could use desks and office machines and stuff like that. I don't want to go on and on too much about this apartment project before they submit everything, but it's pretty nice. It would be really nice.
Do they have a name?
Crossings at Bartlett.
Pardon?
Crossings at Bartlett, I think they call it. Bartlett Crossings.
Bartlett Crossing?
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Tom.
maybe we'll all move there at some point. I'm sure some of us will.
We're talking like 50 units, 100 units?
Think more than that. Yeah, 193.
193?
Yep.
That would certainly need a grocery store.
I'm sorry?
Sure.
That would certainly need a grocery store.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to make that area very attractive. The village is going to still own, and we still market it. Our first email blast, the number one property we featured, is 4 acres right in front of it. It's right at the hard corner of Route 59 and Lake, southwest corner. Their proposal isn't to build up to the front, up to Lake Street, but there'd be a 4-acre strip of land fronting Lake.
Tony, we got a nice parcel, right, 59 and West Bartlett Road. Been vacant for a long time. Has there been any interest?
There's interest, but it's
So,
more...
what's the problem there? Is the price too high?
That'd be a long explanation, but part of it is that it's Cook County, okay? So we've pitched it to pretty much every big box in the market, and they've all passed on it. So I can say that categorically. That site will become mostly residential. It's owned by Crown, like the Crown family, Crown Community Development. So one of the biggest land developers and land owners, building owners that exist. And their plan is to do it almost all residential. We've had a few sniffs at that for office type of uses. And we've been, on the village side, we've been very receptive to that, by the way. I could go down the litany of the Myers and the Costcos and the Woodmans and the Tractor Supply companies, and you'd be hard-pressed to name a big box that hasn't looked at that and passed. But we were pretty receptive. There were some medical uses looking at it and some office uses. We were supportive of both because that would be a driver of more population, daytime population. But nobody's moved forward on that. That's when I put that last slide of the challenging sites. That's one of the biggest challenging sites there is. It's over 100 acres.
Do you know what they're asking cost per acre?
Off the top of my head, I don't. No, it's always been fairly high, around 7 or so per square foot, but they don't, again, because they're land developers themselves. I think the best way to describe it is they'd be more interested in developing the land, prepping it themselves, and selling it to a home builder. Keep in mind they're very high on the Forbes billionaires list, the Crown family. They bought it off of bank-owned foreclosure during the recession, so about 12 years ago.
Thank you, Tony.
Sure thing.
Anything else in new business other than the lovely update on Moore that we just got from Scott? Anyone else have questions for new business? All right. That is the last item on our agenda other than adjournment. Somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
No one's opposed?
Yeah, 7:50.
Aye.
Good night, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Oh, man, I need to...